For some reason, humans have an innate need to compete. This is not to be confused with our need for speed, which is a related need, but different. This is our need to compete. We need to compete. We will turn anything into a competition that makes it so there is a winner and a loser. If you live in the US, you know that most major televised sports, the season is over. So football, it's over. College basketball is over. Hockey is over. Most golf tournaments, golf majors have been played at this point. Even the bottom of the barrel sports in our country, like the NBA, which is just barely a sport. I mean, just barely. Even the NBA season is over. So if you're like me, you're wondering, what do I watch? And this has led me down kind of a rabbit hole of sports and trying to figure out what exactly I can watch to satisfy my need to watch people compete. I don't want to compete myself, but I do want to watch other people compete. And it turns out there are a lot of really obscure sports out there. And as I went down the rabbit hole of sports, I found kind of an offshoot rabbit tunnel off of the bigger rabbit hole. So you have the rabbit hole, and then there are a bunch of rabbit tunnels. And one rabbit tunnel that I went down that I found very interesting was the rabbit tunnel of obscure martial arts. If you think about sport, fighting is maybe the coolest thing that we do as humans. It is just pure competition, obvious winner, obvious loser, who can beat the other person literally. And as you can probably guess by my general vibe, I am a huge fighter. I will fight anyone, anywhere, anytime. I mean, seriously, in the comments, name a time and a place. I will meet you there and I will fight you to the death. And just so I'm explicitly clear, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, if you're watching this, I want you specifically to name a time and a place, and I will meet you there and I will beat you up. And frankly, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, if you don't name a time and a place, I'm just going to assume that you're scared, and I win. Anyway, what led me to find this offshoot of the larger rabbit hole, this rabbit tunnel of obscure martial arts, is when my YouTube suggested videos, for some reason, suggested to me the sport of Carjitsu. And if you've never heard of Carjitsu, let me just explain it to you for a second. There's a martial art called Jiu-Jitsu. I know about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. There might be other Jiu-Jitsus out there. I'm not much of a I go down this martial art path or I go down this martial art path. I just beat people up. I don't know which martial art I practice. I just know that the one that I do results in me winning and the other person usually dead. But there is this sport called Jiu-Jitsu, and it is a method of attacking and defending yourself. And if you've ever seen it, it's kind of like wrestling and kind of like karate combined. Well, it turns out there's an offshoot of Jiu-Jitsu called Carjitsu. And you're probably thinking, oh, cool. Do they fight on top of a car? Do they fight in a parking lot surrounded by cars? Do they try to run cars into one another? And the answer is no to all of those things. They fight in a car. So you have one person on the driver's side, one person on the passenger side, a lot of cameras on the inside and the outside of the car. You start buckled up. Both people start buckled up, for safety. And then the bell rings and safety goes out the window, literally. They fight someone in the confines of a car until somebody taps out, and that is how you know that the round is over. So I know that my descriptions are very vivid, and you probably have a great idea of what this looks like, but I am going to show you just a brief clip of Carjitsu in action so you can get a better sense of what this actually looks like in practice.
The competitors begin seated with safety belts fastened. When the match starts, they unbuckle and engage, using any part of the vehicle to their advantage. Points may be awarded during the match, but have no bearing on the outcome. It takes a submission to win the round at Carjitsu Championship.
So you're going to notice, even from that clip, that there are some typical moves in Carjitsu. And the first move that you're always going to want to go for is unbuckling your seatbelt. So as much as you started buckled in for safety, The car isn't going anywhere, and you need your opponent to go somewhere. And so you need to take your seatbelt off so that you can attack them. So you unbuckle. And frankly, the first person who can unbuckle their seatbelt has a massive advantage over the other person. And so if you're really going to succeed in this sport, if you're very serious about attacking using Carjitsu as a martial art, you need to practice for hours in your garage by yourself the art of unbuckling a seatbelt. And you probably need to practice it in multiple manufacturers of vehicles, multiple settings, multiple temperatures, because you need to get really good and really fast at unbuckling. Because if you're the first person who can unbuckle, you're going to have a huge leg up in this competition. Another typical move in Carjitsu is trying to strangle your opponent with their seatbelt, which again is basically the exact opposite of what a seatbelt was intended for. It was intended for safety, to prevent people from dying. And in Carjitsu, the safety measures turn against you, and you actually use them to try to kill the other person. So the seatbelt, meant for safety, actually becomes a weapon in the hands of these Carjitsu warriors. The only post that I've seen online about Carjitsu, other than from the official YouTube channel of Carjitsu, was from a Reddit post that was just making fun of Carjitsu. Frankly, I hope that there's some more acceptance of Carjitsu moving forward in the martial arts community. And I hope that they develop a belt system just like other martial arts have developed. So you move up from like white belt, yellow belt, on and on and on until you get to black belt. And I hope a couple things about that black belt. One, I hope the final test for getting that black belt is performing Carjitsu while driving the car down the interstate for a period of miles. I think that would be a wonderful challenge and test for the competitors. And two, I hope that the black belt you receive in Carjitsu when you master the sport is the literal seatbelt of your opponent. And I hope that people walk around with the white robes on and then an actual car seatbelt tied around themselves to signify that they've mastered the sport. Okay, time for our next obscure martial art, and that is this: professional shin kicking. So Carjitsu is basically a brand new sport. I mean, if you look at even just the history of cars, they haven't been around that long. Professional shin kicking is actually an ancient practice. It literally started in 1612, and it started in Great Britain. And this sport is still going strong, especially in the UK. Let me read you just a snippet from this sport's Wikipedia page before I show you the shin kicking championships. It says this: during each round, the combatants face each other and hold on to each other's collar or shoulders. Success in the event requires both agility and the ability to endure pain. Believe it or not, it actually hurts to get your shins kicked. The loser crying out, quote, "sufficient," when he has had enough. Legend has it that some shin kickers wore steel-toe boots during the competition and tried to build pain tolerance by hitting their shins with hammers. So there are two things I want you to notice about that Wikipedia entry. One, in the UFC or any other like martial art, you tap out when you've had enough. You're like, hey, I want the round to be over. This is embarrassing. They're going to break my neck. I need to tap out. The round's over. I'm tapping out. Well, in professional shin kicking, they actually take that to a whole new level. And it's way more embarrassing if you want to end the round of professional shin kicking. You simply have to shout the word "sufficient." That is how you tap out in professional shin kicking. Somebody is kicking your shins repeatedly, which according to Wikipedia hurts. It causes pain. And the only way to get out of it is to yell at your opponent and at the watching crowd, "sufficient." It is the most embarrassing academic thing that you could say to end a fight with somebody else. It is also the single most British way I can think of to end a competition. And so you either shout "sufficient" or you prove that the pain was sufficient by collapsing, and either of those things end the round. And the second thing I want you to notice about this Wikipedia entry is that the only way that they recommend training for this sport is by hitting yourself in the shin with a hammer. So you go to your local Home Depot, you pick out a good-looking hammer, you go home, and you just start whacking yourself in the shin with it. That is the best way that you can prepare to fight in this sport. And honestly, It sounds easy, cheap, and effective. I think I'm going to try that right now. Please hold. Okay, I got this Stanley fiberglass hammer, and I'm going to try to prepare to become a professional shin kicker by hitting myself in the shin with this hammer. And at first glance, this looks like it's really going to hurt. Let me try my arm. Yeah, it doesn't feel good. My chest doesn't feel good. I imagine that my shin is actually probably going to hurt worse than any of those things. Oh. I mean, I'm barely tapping it, and it really hurts. This is not a sport that I would recommend for almost anybody. Now, do I think I could absolutely whoop Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson in this sport? Absolutely. Absolutely, I could beat him in professional shin kicking. But I'm telling you, I'm just barely tapping my shin, and it really hurts. I would not recommend this sport for almost anybody. Man, I had to cry sufficient on that one. That hurt really bad. Here's a great clip of this sport as my shin recovers from that sufficient beating. So that's professional shin kicking. Very real sport, very real competition, very, very real pain. Okay, the next obscure martial art is toe wrestling, and this is another invention of the British. According to my YouTube analytics, there's about a 7% chance that you are watching this video from the UK, from the United Kingdom. And if you are watching this from the UK, I just have one question for you. Why? That's it. If you could leave an answer to that in the comments below, I'd really appreciate the clarification. Okay, so again, according to the official Wikipedia page for this sport, the sport was invented in 1976 in Staffordshire, United Kingdom by 4 drinkers in Ye Old Royal Oak Inn. Again, a very incredibly British origin story. So here's a brief clip of the toe wrestling championships.
3, 2, 1, toes away, right? Toes
Okay, the final obscure martial art that we need to look at together is the art of cardboard tube fighting. And that is exactly what it sounds like it is. It is people fighting each other with cardboard tubes. So let me just show you a clip of that in case you're having trouble visualizing it.
He's good.
So here are the core beliefs of the founder who started the cardboard tube fighting sport. These are the official core beliefs of the sport. Keep that in mind. 1, people need more ways to play and take themselves less seriously. Couldn't agree more. That's great. 2, events can be fun without alcohol. Which is, of course, true, but very strange to be like a core tenet of a sport that events can be fun without alcohol. That doesn't really make sense as like one of the rules of this sport to me. 3, cardboard sword fighting is fun. I've never done it. I imagine that it would be fun. It sounds like fun. So again, statement 1 and statement 3 make a ton of sense to me. We take ourselves too seriously. Cardboard tube fighting sounds awesome. It sounds like a great use of my time. But statement 2, very interesting. I'm not saying that it's wrong. Of course, it's actually right. Events can be fun without alcohol. I think we all know that and believe that. But that statement as a core value of a sport is very interesting, to say the least. And if you're like me, you're thinking, where does that come from? Why make that a core value of a sport? Well, here's my theory. And it's a bit of a conspiracy theory, but I think I might be right. I think the guy who invented cardboard tube fighting is a secret prohibitionist who is trying to bring back the illegality of alcohol nationwide and perhaps globally. And I think his plan is pretty simple. Step 1, get everyone in the world addicted to cardboard tube fighting. Cardboard tube fighting sounds pretty dang awesome. I kind of want to try it literally right now. And if you can get people addicted to that, they will do it, and they will do it a lot. And step 2 is you get them even more addicted to cardboard tube fighting, where they don't even take a break to eat, to sleep, to work, to think about anything else other than fighting one another with cardboard tubes. And then step 3, after they love the sport more than life itself, you remind them that a core value of the sport is not drinking alcohol while you're doing the sport. You remind them that they have to do it sober or they're really not doing it at all. And then finally, step 4, all alcohol sales cease nationwide, perhaps globally, and those that make cardboard tubes, the cardboard tube manufacturers, they become the world's first trillionaires. So it's that simple. And honestly, step 1 is going really well so far because all I've thought about since I discovered this sport is how I can get my hands on a cardboard tube, actually 2 cardboard tubes, and how I can get my hands on what people call a friend in order to fight that friend with a cardboard tube. Sounds like a phenomenal time. If you're still watching this video, I love you more than I love thinking about cardboard tube fighting. And I love that a lot. I know I said this in the last video, but truly every single time somebody likes the video or comments on the video or I get a new subscriber, every one of those things individually genuinely means something to me. So thank you for watching, and thank you for any interaction that you would give to the channel and give to the video. I genuinely, truly appreciate you.